I'd like to call the meeting to order, including the members of the select board. Okay, so welcome everyone to the Finance Committee's second hearing. We're going to begin with a roll call to confirm that we have a quorum of the Finance Committee.
Okay, this is the roll call for quorum. Suresh Bhatia. Peggy Briggs. Is Peggy here? Is Peggy, is she, I think she's online. Let's double check. Okay, so is Peggy here?
Yeah, she's Peggy Trey. Yeah.
It's also a good test of the audio.
We're gonna.
Okay. Peggy is here online. Brian Conway. Kathy Kukalo. Eric Dahlberg. John Garofalo.
Here.
Pat Geyer. Gerard Jansen.
Here.
Don Kupka.
Here.
Lindsay Liss.
Here.
Carlin Reed here. Paul Rodriguez.
Present online.
Online? Okay, yeah, good. Kasi Sedrusaman. Shri Tupel.
Yep.
Okay, Shri's online. Lois Wassoff.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. So I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. I am Lois Wassoff. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee, and I want to thank you all for attending our public hearing. I just have a couple of brief introductory remarks. Tonight is the second of the three public hearings that are held by the Finance Committee on the warrant articles that have or may have financial impact on the town. Holding these hearings is one of the most important tasks of the committee. These hearings give the town's citizens an opportunity to learn more about the warrant articles and to ask questions of the sponsors. The presentations and the questions asked by committee members and by citizens attending the meeting are critically important in helping the Finance Committee perform another of its obligations. Each year, the Finance Committee votes on the recommendations it will make to town meeting on each of these warrant articles. The recommendations are included in the Finance Committee report that will be distributed in advance of town meeting. Your participation in the hearing process is an important part of our town meeting process. Each article being presented tonight will have an impact on life in Concord for our residents, businesses, town employees, and town visitors. Over the course of the three public hearings that are being held this month, we will review 33 of the 50 articles on the annual town meeting warrant. At our first hearing last Thursday, we heard from the town, from Concord Public Schools, and from Concord Carlisle Regional School District on their proposed FY27 operating and capital budgets. We also heard from Minuteman Technical High School District, of which Concord is a member. At the hearing tonight, the Finance Committee and the public will hear from the Community Preservation Committee, and will also hear about other articles having financial implications, including, among others, the establishment of stabilization funds. At our final hearing on March 12th, we'll hear from the town's enterprise funds, including the BD Swim and Fitness Center, Light Plant Water and Sewer, and the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund. As with all public events, we expect a civil dialogue. We ask that all speakers keep their presentations brief, 5 to 10 minutes at most. Public comment will be limited only to the article or issue being discussed. All public comments must be made through the chair. Individuals who speak out of order, disrupt the meeting, or interfere with others who are speaking will be removed. Questions are encouraged. However, please keep in mind that presenters may not be able to answer all the questions this evening. Be assured that your questions and input will be considered as the presenters develop final presentations for annual town meeting. Copies of all public hearing presentation materials and the agenda for each Finance Committee public hearing is included in the Finance Committee packet and will be posted and available at the town website and at the annual town meeting section of the town's website. These public hearings are being recorded on Zoom and will be accessible on Minuteman Media's network YouTube channel. After each presentation, the Finance Committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions. Then I will open the floor to members of the public. Members of the public should limit their questions to 1 minute. If you are in the public hearing room, please stand and line up at the microphone. If you are on Zoom, please select the raise hand function. After the Finance Committee closes each public hearing, the committee will meet immediately after in regular session. Our intention is to discuss and possibly vote on recommendations for each warrant article heard during the public hearing. As always, regular sessions, our regular Finance Committee meetings, are open to the public. Some other calendar reminders. Don't forget that the annual town election is on March 31st. Annual town meeting will be on Monday, April 27th, starting at 6:30 p.m. at Concord Carlisle High School, with subsequent days to follow. Thank you all, and now I'm going to turn the floor over to Eve Eisenberg.
Are you going to open the public hearing?
Oh, first I'm going to open the public hearing.
This is where I get to the roll call again. All right, this is roll call to open the public hearing. Peggy Briggs.
It seems she's having connection issues.
Okay.
She's coming in and out.
All right. I'll come back to her in just a moment. John Garofalo.
Here.
How about a yes to open up the public hearing?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sheree Tupel.
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
And can we get Peggy Briggs on this? I'm waiting for Peggy's response to open up the public hearing. Okay, I'm going to have no response to that, but we still have quorum, so we have 8. Gerard, the count I have is 8 yes, and no abstentions?
Agreed.
Okay, all right.
And now, I'm going to ask Eve Eisenberg of the CPC to begin her presentation on Article 26.
Great, thank you very much, Lois. Can people hear me right here? Yeah, okay, good. Yes, I'm Eve Eisenberg, current chair of the Community Preservation Committee, for now anyway. And I have almost twice as many applications to present as we had last year. I will do my very best to keep it as short as possible. Good evening, and thank you to the Finance Committee, and especially to Peggy for her attendance and counsel at our meetings. Let's see. The CPC offers, here we go. The CPC offers warrant Article 26 to determine whether the town will vote to appropriate or reserve from the Concord Community Preservation Fund annual revenues, prior year fund balance, and reserves in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 27, and further to rescind prior appropriations in the sum of $482,978 from the Community Preservation Fund appropriated at the 2020 and 2021 annual town meetings, and appropriate that amount to the Open Space Reserve Fund, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation in accordance with Chapter 44B of the Mass General Laws, to be expended under the direction of the town manager as printed in the warrant. Okay, buckle up, everybody. Here we go. Here is a chart of our total recommended appropriations, our budget reserves, and then the distribution: community housing at $824,500, administration at $50,000, historic preservation $295,175, open space $1,050,000, and recreation $2,455,378. Okay, this is not coming out properly. Whoops. Okay, noted that that slide is messed up. Anyway, the Regional Housing Services Office requests $39,000 for Concord's continued participation in their program. Our HSO oversees 10 communities, including Acton, Bedford, Concord, Lexington, Lincoln, Maynard, Natick, Sudbury, Wayland, and Weston, and provides professional staff support for administrative and monitoring the existing affordable housing programs, as well as working with each community to develop new programs to further regional housing goals. This funding request will be supplemented with $38,000 of town funds. Next up, application. The CPC recommends supporting the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust with $785,500. The trust coordinates with the Concord Housing Roundtable partners to implement strategies in the housing production plan. Current priorities include funding acquisition of 91B Main Street for 4 affordable housing units there, advocating for affordable housing at the MCI Junction Village and Land Use Working Group, and encouraging the targeting of sites for housing for seniors. Additionally, the trust is advocating for state approval of Concord's proposed real estate transfer fee and building permit surcharge legislation to supplement CPC funding. The Conservation Fund is an application from the Division of Natural Resources for $500,000 for conservation land acquisition and related expenses such as appraisals, environmental site assessments, and closing costs. The Conservation Fund allows the NRC to be in a stronger position to more quickly acquire priority parcels targeted by the Open Space and Recreation Plan, which is developed through a public process. The Conservation Fund would be administered by the town CFO. Additional funding sources could be private donations through the Land Trust, capital funds, or state and federal grants. The CPC recommends funding $490,570 for the Assabet River Bridge and Trail Project of the Planning Division. This application is the 4th and final CPC funding request for the project and will bring the development of the plans, engineering, and permitting to 100% design, completing the architectural plans, full structural and construction drawings that meet the requirements of all local, state, and federal permitting need for construction. The bridge was first targeted in the 2010 West Concord Master Plan and will connect the large employment centers on Baker Ave Extension to the West Concord Village Business District, the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, and the West Concord Community Rail Station. You got to check out the video these guys made. It's really awesome. The CPC recommends funding the Concord Carlisle School District application for $1,417,655 for an amenities building addition to the CCHS campus. CPA funds may be used for rehabilitation of land for recreational use, including making capital improvements to improve functionality, as well as improvements to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. In 2018, a campus feasibility study highlighted that the Mass Building Code requires that permanent bathroom facilities be installed within 500 feet of permanent grandstands. Then, more recently, the school district commissioned Gale Associates to present and analyze several options. The winner is an 800-square-foot concrete block seasonal building with no heat or air conditioning, which includes women's, men's, and single-use bathrooms to meet the MA plumbing code, a concession counter and a sink, and a small storage space to serve patrons of the football field, the tennis courts, the cross-country track, the softball fields, and summer camps. The project has already approved funding from Carlisle CPC for $432,345 to supplement Concord CPC funds. The CPC recommends funding to expand the refurbishment of the Rideout Park tennis and basketball courts. The Recreation Department and Commission has requested $497,153 to add to the current available funding for post-tensioned concrete, which will add 20 to 30 years to the typical 5 to 10-year lifespan of regular concrete. Town meeting previously approved fundings in 2019 for this project in the amount of $130,000 and $108,847. The CPC recommends funding the Thoreau Farm Trust application for $600,000 for the planning and construction phases of the proposed Thoreau Farm Trail. This 1-mile-long accessible trail will link the National Parkland Battle Road Trail to the town's Thoreau Farm. Travelers will experience a diverse and ecologically rich wetlands landscape from the trail, which will link neighborhoods, historic sites, and other trail networks in Concord and Bedford. $125,000 of ARPA funds have been designated for preliminary engineering services. CPC funds will also be used to leverage other funding sources from future matching and reimbursement grants. Considering the upcoming land planning decisions to be made in West Concord, the CPC recommends $100,000 to fund a town planning division study called the Concord Reformatory and West Concord Thematic Preservation Study. This study will produce a report and a preservation survey for the area of the Concord Reformatory, or MCI Concord, and adjacent West Concord area, and will give context for our choices and guide our decisions for the plan for that area. The CPC recommends funding $50,000 for 40 new aluminum storm windows for the Concord Free Public Library in downtown Concord. The original windows are single pane and date back to a renovation in 1933. There are 8 different sizes of windows, some with arched transoms, so the storms must be custom made. The new storm windows will protect the historic windows, improve energy conservation, and, with a low-E coating, will help protect the contents of the library from harmful sun damage. This request is in addition to $23,425 already collected for the project. CPC recommends funding $36,000 for the conservation and digitization of the town archive record books, volumes 1 through 5. These first books of town records contain information on all facets of town government since its incorporation in 1635, including select board meeting minutes, treasury payments, land transfers, birth, death, and marriage records, road layouts, etc. Past preservation efforts included transcription in the 1850s and 1930s and microfilm in the 1970s. The books will be digitized but also repaired and stabilized by conservation professionals to prevent further deterioration. In our continued support of the Wright Tavern, the CPC recommends funding $81,200 for building code upgrades to existing electrical wiring and a systems assessment and plan for future HVAC and electrical improvements. The Wright Tavern Legacy Trust is in a constant battle against time to maintain and preserve the Wright Tavern, which was built in 1747 and is one of the oldest and most well-loved buildings in town. Back at the Concord Free Public Library, the CPC recommends funding $27,975 for the digitation and conservation of the land property surveys drawn by Henry David Thoreau, which were donated to the library by his sister Sophia in 1874. This is the most significant archive, including over 200 surveys documenting Concord during that time. In 2002, the surveys were digitized through a grant, but the resolution was way too low. In addition to being redigitized at a higher resolution, the surveys will be rehoused, preserved, and logged online, keeping them accessible for current and future researchers. And then finally, we need $50,000 for our administration and technical support for our CPC activities. With what's left, the CPC recommends adding our remainder of funds of $131,231 into an historical preservation reserve. Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Was that a lot?
Thank you for the presentation.
That was a lot.
I'm going to start by looking around the, let's start by looking around the room and seeing if any of the Finance Committee members in the room have any questions. John, Gerard?
On the amenities building for the school, on the amenities building, what's the total cost going to be?
The total cost?
Yeah.
You're going to make me add these two numbers in my head. It's about 1.8 million, but it's like no, you know what, I have it right here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little over 1.8 million.
Yeah, thank you.
Don, do you have a question? No? Lindsay? Carlin, you had a...
Yeah, I have two questions. Regarding, just curious, the staff support request for $50,000, is that the total budget, or is that half of the budget for that service? Historically, I thought half was paid through CPC, half was paid through town. Is $50,000 the total amount this year?
I mean, I thought so.
Okay.
I can double check.
Well, just wondering if that there's been a shift in the change on how that positions are funded. Second question is, you have two, what I view as bucket fund allocations, one for the Housing Trust for $785,000 and one for the Conservation Fund for $600,000, I think it is.
It's 500.
How does, is it 500? Yeah, it's 500,000. How does the CPC feel about basically delegating supervision of those funds to these two organizations, the Natural Resources Commission and the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust?
From your lips, Carlin, to my committee's ears. Yes, we need to discuss this for sure. We've been hinting at having a discussion of that nature. We have now a couple of years of working with the Housing Trust, which has done remarkable work with the funds that we have designated. In my own opinion, it hurts a little bit to have all of that money go to the trust such that we don't get to see part of it, but I think that something will be worked out with that. I just need to confer with my committee about how they feel, but we certainly don't want to interrupt the trust's activities in any way, I don't know, personally, I'd like to get more involved with that. And with regards to the Conservation Fund, we're just going to have to see how it goes. We've talked in our minutes, we've talked online about, at our meetings, we've talked about maybe capping that. Delia knows at some number and then topping it off as needed. We've talked about other funding sources that could be leveraged with CPC money. I don't know that it's an every year thing for us. So all of these questions absolutely need to get discussed, and hopefully answers are coming soon. But you're on trend.
Thank you. That's all.
Are there any members of the Finance Committee online who have questions? Ryan, can you see any raised hands? None? Okay, then let's go to the public. Why don't we start with the people in the room? Does anybody have any questions, comments, additions?
Oh,
Are you the public?
before,
and-
can I just mention someone's phone is sitting up here? I don't know whose phone that is.
And you know this, and we all know you, but if you could begin by identifying yourself for the people at home, it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Bergman, 56 White Avenue, Chair of the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. And I would begin by saying that the Trust has voted to recommend that the Finance Committee bring to town meeting with your favorable action both of the community housing projects that are in Article 26. Items A and B, as has been reviewed by Eve. We want to thank the voters of Concord for their approval at town meeting of all the funding that we've received over time. And we still have work to do. And in the memo that I sent for your record for today's hearing, just highlighted a few things. First, our subsidized housing inventory, which we track, it's going to reach 10%. We'll be back down to 10% next month because both of the 40Bs that were approved in the last year and the year before fell off the SHI for not having pulled their building permits within 1 year of zoning board approval. The good news is, according to the town, both of those 40Bs will be pulling their building permits by this June, which would get them back on the SHI and even more importantly, get both of those projects underway for a total of 438 rental units, which would add 110 affordable units for Concord's inventory. What we want to call to your attention again, just as we did a year ago, when we reach what will be a subsidized housing inventory of 16%, only 7% of our housing stock will be affordable. That 16% of the total units are countable on the SHI. You get to count them if they're deed restricted at up to 80% of AMI, or if they are rental units in a 40B. The 40B adds 3 market rate units for every 1 affordable. So we have far more units that are countable than we do affordable. So we think the work still needs to go on. At the same time, the town, through the leadership of the select board, has 2 once-in-a-generation opportunities which will produce some kind of housing, among other things. The MCI Concord reuse and redevelopment, and the land use working group effort, which will identify which town properties can be available for future disposition. So there's a lot to do. We're very happy for the support of the Community Preservation Committee. We work through a Concord Housing Roundtable, which meets quarterly. It's 7 boards the Select Board, the Planning Board, the Community Preservation Committee, and the 4 groups with housing in their name to collectively monitor implementation in the Housing Production Plan. We're happy to work more closely with the CPC so that we're all feeling good about the way the money gets spent, and appreciate everyone's support.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. Paul Bohm, 11 Ridgewood Road, member of the Select Board, but speaking for myself with some clarifying comments. First, on the Conservation Fund, the Article 25, which will precede this town meeting, will ask the public to approve a bylaw, a Conservation Fund bylaw. Conservation Fund bylaw will set some governance rules around the spending, which includes coordination between other interested parties in town for land, for example, the Housing Trust, Public Works, and others, and also for purchase of land for fee purchase will require Select Board approval. So there are checks built into the spending of the Conservation Fund, which will be in front of the town. Second, hopefully helpful comments. I'm a liaison to the Public Works Commission. The Public Works Commission has approved the sewer hookup for the amenities building, because that was a concern. The schools will be funding that sewer hookup, but I think as far as that whole issue of the sewer hookups, which have been in discussion for a couple of years, I think that part has been approved by Public Works Commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Cameron McKennett, 64 Nut Meadow Crossing. I am a member of the Select Board, also speaking on my own behalf. So I just had a couple of questions. Thank you for the presentation. At the beginning of it, I thought I saw, is it $498,000 that's kind of coming back in, being reallocated or was unspent? Did I see that that's going to an open space fund? So can I just sort of clarify that $500,000 of open space fund is different from a new $500,000 that we want to establish for a conservation fund? And how would we explain to the public the difference between those two funds and why we need both of those funds? So maybe you can answer now, or just maybe it's for consideration.
Yeah, no, I think it would be useful to, well, the questions first. So go ahead, Eve, please.
Excellent observation, yes. So it was just a happy coincidence that the money that we were able to take back that expired from the 30-month memorandum of understanding for certain projects that were not, that shall remain nameless, that were not expended, matches the amount that the Conservation Fund requested, though that's a coincidence. But this is how we were able to fund as many projects as we wanted, was that we were able to close out some projects that weren't finished or actually weren't even started, and where their memorandum was expired at that point, just in time for the Conservation Fund. So that money that was, I guess, rescinded, you could say, was put in an open space fund because it was designated as open space in the year that it was appropriated. It was...
Just to clarify. So it
Yeah.
went back into
No,
the CPC
budget.
fund.
You got it.
Cameron.
Sorry, I was just trying to clarify. So you're saying it went back into the CPC fund?
That's right.
It's not, because when I read it, it said open space fund. Just wanted to
May I check
confirm,
my
that's all.
slide here? I just want to see what it says here.
Yeah.
I thought it was clear, but, oh, okay, it's not on there.
One more.
Yeah.
Okay,
When it
prior
says Open Space
appropriations.
Reserve Fund, I guess when I read Open Space Reserve Fund, and then I hear there's a new conservation fund, that leads one to believe there's two reserve funds.
I can see how that would be confusing. The Open Space Reserve Fund refers to the 10% buckets. We have 3 of them that we need to pay out to: historic preservation, open space recreation, and housing. And so when projects come out of those 3 buckets, if we rescind the money because the project didn't happen, they go back into that same bucket. It's just a designation for finance purposes.
I think, Eve, that's a good note to take for the presentation at town meeting, to be clear about that in the slides, because it's a reasonable confusion. Cameron, did you have another comment?
I did, if it's okay. So the Assabet Trails and Bridge, so we just signed a thing looking for a grant request for that project. Is what we're looking for from the CPC in addition to that money, or if we get that grant money, would it replace the CPC money?
It is in addition to. So the CPC money is used for design, and what we were talking about in the select board meeting was for construction costs that would be outside of the TIP program when the project is approved.
Got it. Cool. All right, last one. Picking up, Keith, on your comments around the housing, when we see the new projects going in, Novo, Thoreau, et cetera, bringing the inventory to 16%, it would be helpful, at least for me and maybe some others, to understand where that leaves us with gaps in the housing production plan. Because I think when we hear sort of like supporting housing production plan, but then in another breath we hear, there's 437 units coming in that's putting us at 16%, just where there might be sort of gaps.
Keith, and then I want to move on to...
And then I'm done.
Thanks very much, Keith Bergman again. The good news is that the 2022 housing production plan, which expires next year, is going to be updated with funding that was provided by the trust because we had it available in the trust fund. And so that process, which is a new housing production plan with updated goals, based on all the things that have changed. We didn't have either 40B on our radar screen in 2022. It's all we think about now. And MCI Concord isn't even in the plan from 2022. So there are a lot of changes that will be able to find expression in the 2027 housing production plan, which will be approved by the select board and the planning board, and with input from all of us. And so we will all be in agreement by the time the select board and planning board are approving the new plan on what our direction is and what our priorities are.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments in the room?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
All right,
just putting
then
this back.
that's okay. All right, then, Ryan, do we have any? Okay, can you promote
too.
them? And
Sure.
Eric Moore?
Hi, good evening. Eric Moore, 45 Francis Street, speaking for myself. Thank you for the work and for the presentation. I just have a little bit of a confusion. So my apologies for not really understanding the CPA or the work of the CPC, but when I saw the first slide, the pie chart, I thought, whoa, we're spending 3 times as much in recreation as housing. And then, as you go through the deck, then it's clear that, project by project, you make grants according to who, what's been applied for and so on. And so I think for me, just seeing the categories up front was a little bit confusing relative to what I believe to be the emphases of the work by the CPC. So I'd suggest even dropping the pie chart altogether, unless the allocation by category is actually important for the way that you approve grants this year or is important over other years. So I found the categories a bit confusing. The other thing is, I guess I'm not super clear that the money for the CPA, the money for the CPA allocations comes from the state. It would be good just to sort of see that in the context of a slide. Thank you.
thank you. We have one other comment online, Ryan.
Yeah, Christine Reynolds?
Christine.
Hello,
Welcome back.
Chris Reynolds, Captain Miles Lane. I have a question for Eve. So I'm trying to understand essentially the roll forward of your balance. So my recollection is that the dollars that come into this fund ran around maybe 2.3 million on an annual basis. What was it for this year? What was this year's appropriation for CPC?
Eve, do you have a...
Yeah, I actually brought that paper thinking someone was going to ask me that. Okay. So this year, the estimate total available for appropriations at the 2026 annual town meeting is $4,382,058, which is way, way more than we usually have, anyone can tell you. And this was a combination of not having as many projects as funds as we had last year, of an increase that I can't explain of the contribution from the state, and the fact that we were able to close out some projects that never really started and rescind some funds. We're actually trying to do that more now, and that's what our last meeting and our next couple meetings will be. We'll be closing out more projects that haven't happened. We're trying to be more accountable about monitoring the projects that we fund. So we will be even having more money come back for next year's CPC, if that makes sense. Did that answer the question?
Okay. So if the amount normally is around what's the amount from our taxes? Is it around 2 million, exclusive of what the state is giving you?
Yeah, I don't know.
It used to be 1.8 million to 2.3, somewhere around
That's
there.
exactly right. It's somewhere between there, but I don't have the exact figure in front of me.
Okay. Okay, so this year you have 4.8 million. So you have 2.5 million more. How much of that is from the state versus how much is from your rescission balance?
Thank you. Okay, I have been corrected. Our projected surcharge this year is $1,939,870, which actually fits exactly in your bracket that you just mentioned. And then I missed the rest of your question, I'm sorry.
So how do you get from 1.9 million to 4.8? So how much was the state allocation?
I believe that this is online. Yeah, okay. In our CPC meeting documents, we have something called the final, I think it's called the final CPA resources available for fiscal year 27 cycle. This is where I printed it from in order to bring it to this meeting, and it actually has many numbers here that explain that. But within the projected surcharge at 1.9 million, the state match at 340,000. The earnings are on the investments of our money that we didn't spend. Our estimated fiscal year 26 fund reserve revenue is almost 2.5 million. Then we had a prior year undesignated balance of almost 200,000, and a prior year reserve of budgeted reserves that they don't go into any one particular bucket of 1.3 million. So that adds up to 1.5 million. So now we have 2.5 million plus 1.5 million. And then we had designated reserves of historic preservation and open space to the tune of about 350,000. So between the 2.5 million of projected surcharge and state match and in earnings on investment, and the 1.5 million of undesignated balances that I mentioned before, and the $350,000 of other reserves that we had from years ago, we basically spent all our money is the answer. We've spent pretty much all of our money this year, and we had a total of a $4.4 almost million to spend. Does that make sense?
I think in your presentation, you need to have something that lays that out, Eve. I think it would help the voters understand that.
Thank you for your comment. I appreciate it.
Sure, yeah. And if there's anything else, I think that's really it.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, I think we can thank Eve for her presentation and thank everyone for their questions and move on to the next article.
Lois, I believe this one is yours. Lois. This is your article.
I think she's taken most of them, yeah.
Article 3.
Where it is my name. Well, it's spelled right. All right, so Jennifer, even though my name is on the screen, you will be presented. And you can try and imitate my New York accent if you would like.
This is just the meeting procedure. I believe it's an evergreen item.
I think that's right.
That is in the beginning of town meeting every year. So it sets the rules of the meeting for the Finance Committee.
And generally, this is a non-controversial item that, Madam Moderator, is often on the consent calendar?
this article has been on the warrant for the last 20 years and on the consent calendar for the last 20 years.
Thank you for that clarification. So with that said, do we have any questions about this article? I see none in the Finance Committee. Any online? Then let's move on.
Let's move on.
What? I asked if there were any online. No. So the next item we will hear about is Article 6.
Bringing all my stuff up because
Which will be quick because we're not moving it, correct?
Yes, I'm all set with this one. I'm good from here over. There we go. We're good. Article 6, budget line item adjustments for the fiscal year 26 budget. We have no definitive needs to make transfers within the fiscal 26 appropriation at this time. We will take up transfers as necessary through the Mass General Law Chapter 44, Section 33B transfer process at the end of the fiscal year with the Finance Committee and the Select Board. So we anticipate no motion under Article 6.
So then let's move on to Article 7. The article to restore balance is close to free cash. And Jennifer, you'll be presenting on this again.
So just to preface, as you said, your name was on there. I literally just left a name in. Those are still up for dibs if anyone wants to actually make these motions, because I am not allowed. So we will replace those names into the final presentation as that comes about. Article 7 proposes that the town transfer $948,791 from free cash to the salary reserve and the insurance reserve. These funds were closed to free cash at fiscal year 24 year end. And under our bylaws and financial practices, these funds should have been handled differently at that time. We are currently working on establishing financial best practices and revisions to our financial policies to be sure this past oversight does not represent future practice. Under Section 4 of the Insurance Reserve Fund bylaw, the town accountant is authorized each year as of June 30th to transfer into the insurance reserve any unexpended balance from fiscal year appropriations designated for insurance purposes. This has been a routine and automatic part of year-end financial closeout. For fiscal year 24, our health insurance expenses were lower than budgeted. This was primarily due to fewer insurance claims than anticipated under our former provider, the Minuteman Neshoba Health Group. As a result, $519,696 in unspent funds were available to be transferred to the insurance reserve, but were closed to free cash at year end. Article 7 seeks to correct that year-end action by restoring the $519,696 to the insurance reserve fund. This transfer simply executes what should have been occurred automatically under the bylaw. The salary reserve closeout, in addition to the insurance closeout, the FY24 salary reserve was not utilized during that year. Salary adjustments were covered within departmental budgets, which meant that the reserve funds were not drawn down. As a result, $555,000 was closed to from the salary reserve was closed to free cash. It is important to note that the FY24 non-union merit pay was not encumbered from the FY24 salary reserve. Instead, those payments were issued during a regular 25 payroll cycle and therefore came out of the 25 salary reserve, as the previously appropriated funds were not available after closing. Subsequently, the FY25 merit pay and collective bargaining settlements were funded from the FY26 salary reserve, resulting in a domino effect. This article requests that $429,095 be transferred from free cash back into the salary reserve fund of 26. This is the amount of the fiscal year 25 payments that would have been encumbered from the salary reserve had it not been depleted by FY24 payments. This chart shows historical free cash activity. Actually, this is our certified free cash, indicating a historic average of about $10 million until fiscal year '24. This jump to over $15 million includes several factors, including, not insignificantly, these two closing oversights. The Division of Local Services gathers information from every Massachusetts city and town through annual reporting. The data bank compiles that information for public reference. You can find this table on the DLS Gateway website labeled Free Cash Proof Comparison. Included in the table are the essential components for generating free cash each year, including unexpended and unencumbered funds. Article 7 requests a transfer of the total $948,791 from free cash into the Insurance Reserve Fund and Salary Reserve Fund.
Okay, I'm going
Questions?
to open it up to questions from the Finance Committee. Anyone in the room have questions? Don, let's start with you.
Thank you for that explanation, Jennifer. How did this come to light?
In basically when this jump was seen in the free cash certification, questions were raised. How did that happen? Why was so much all of a sudden available to free cash? The finance department put some research into it, put together a very comprehensive memo to the town manager explaining all of the factors that went into that large increase in free cash. These were two items that we could rectify as oversights.
Thank you.
Any other questions in the room? Any Finance Committee member questions online? Ryan, any raised hands?
Not online, and no questions from the attendees, no hands up on that either. Oh, well, there's one, just came up. Christine Reynolds?
Christine?
Hi, thank you. So when free cash gets certified by the state, right?
Yes.
So when you had to go back and tell them it was wrong or we didn't follow our policy, what do they do?
At the time that this was discovered, we opted to not return for recertification. That is a possibility. If something was egregiously wrong, they would reopen our balance sheet and recertify a different free cash number. We opted to not do that because these two items were the only two that had any impact on other future or other actions taken in the current year. And we decided at that time that we would just put forth a town meeting article to rectify instead of reopening the balance sheet.
Okay. And the state's okay with that, I guess?
This is a perfectly legitimate use of free cash to correct prior year actions.
Okay. And so other people in town, or we made decisions based on free cash levels that were too high by about $1 million last year?
The free cash last year was 15 million, almost 16 million, whereas we usually have about 10. Last year's authorizations from free cash were 1.5 million. So they did not consider the fact that there was such a large increase in the proposals put forward last year.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and it's also useful to note that free cash was certified very late last year.
Yes.
So almost on the eve of town meeting. Do you want to, Jennifer, can you briefly summarize the steps that are being taken to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
Since my arrival, the motto has been process and procedure and evaluation and forward thinking. So we have been working on making sure that the policies that we have are being upheld, the procedures that we have are being followed, and if those procedures are outdated, we are creating new procedures to make sure that what we are doing is fiscally sound.
Brian, are there any other questions?
No other questions.
Okay, so Jennifer, thank you for that. Oh, there is one? Oh,
Mark Howell, member of the Select Board. Because the presentation refers to the insurance reserve and replacing funds in the insurance reserve, I think it might actually be helpful to add a little information about what the current balance of the insurance reserve is and maybe what the target policy for that number would be. It certainly was a question that came up in my mind while you were presenting it.
yeah, that's a
Thank
good
you.
suggestion.
For reference, I believe the balance in the insurance reserve is about $3.3 million.
Okay, let's move on to Article 8. Jennifer, you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, let's proceed.
Article 8 asks that town meeting appropriate $58,710 from the salary reserve of fiscal year '26 to fund the fiscal year '25 obligations under the recently concluded collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 25, representing our public safety dispatchers. This appropriation covers the retroactive salary adjustments owed for fiscal year '25 under the agreement. This bargaining unit includes 8 members, though it's important to note that 7 of them will receive retroactive pay for fiscal year '25. The 8th dispatcher was hired in fiscal year '26 and is not eligible. As part of the agreement, we created a salary table with rates that realigned to market rate, and we also incorporated internal equity step placement adjustments to ensure consistency and fairness within the unit. This contract also modernizes leave accrual and leave-related provisions and updates compensation for relevant education and certifications. The agreement provides a total package increase of 9.43% in year 1. Year 2 is 6.5 and year 3 is 5.68 for reference, combining the market rate adjustment, internal equity placement, and COLA compensations. Since this article focuses specifically on FY25, the relevant figure here is the 1-year impact. The contract period runs from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027, and negotiations were completed in December of '25. Because the FY25 salary adjustments were not finalized during FY25, we now require an appropriation to fund the retroactive salary owed for that fiscal year. Consider it an old bill. The balance of the original FY25 salary reserve closed to free cash at the end of the fiscal year, so a new appropriation is required. While FY26 funds are already accounted for in the FY26 salary reserve, Article 8 pertains only to FY25. Pending the passage of Article 7, which we just talked about, the salary reserve would have sufficient funds for this appropriation, so we are able to meet our FY25 obligations of $58,710 with the collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters for public safety.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to open it to questions from Finance Committee members. Do I see any questions in the room? I don't. Ryan, any Finance Committee members online?
No Finance Committee members online.
Okay, then let's open it up for other comments, and the first one seems to be from the town moderator.
Carmen Reese, 52 Devon Street, town moderator. Just a question. You mentioned that Article 7 would have to pass, Jennifer. What's the contingency plan if it doesn't?
Free cash.
Okay. Any other questions? Then let's move on. Jennifer?
Still here.
Article 9.
Article 9 asks the town to transfer $676,242.77 from free cash into the special revenue account for FEMA Coronavirus Relief Fund. This transfer addresses outstanding grant-funded COVID-19, non-grant funded COVID-19 expenses incurred between 2020 and 2022 that were never reimbursed by federal or state agencies. During the COVID-19 emergency, municipalities relied on several state and federal programs for reimbursement. These included the CARES Act, FEMA Public Assistance, and ARPA. The town utilized all of these where eligible. Each program had different rules, reimbursement timelines, and shifting guidance, which contributed to the balance we're addressing tonight. Reimbursement processes through COVID-19 were highly complex and continuously changing. Communities had to navigate evolving guidance, shifting eligibility rules, and multiple reporting systems. I'm sure we all remember the cleaning supplies, workspace modifications, and vaccine programs back in 2020. All of these expenses were allowable at various points in the time, though not consistently across all programs. This complexity resulted in some expenses being reimbursed, others denied, and some pending for extended periods. All towns in the Commonwealth experienced the following timeline. From FY 2020 through FY 21, ongoing spending on COVID-19 response. In FY 22, spending ceased, but reimbursements remained pending. By FY 23 and FY 24, reimbursements were either received or formally denied. In FY 25, the town undertook a final full reconciliation process, exposing the resulting deficit now before town meeting. After reconciling all COVID-related activity, we have been able to identify that $74,669 had been received into the general fund and not noted for the special revenue fund, so it closed to free cash in FY 24. $80,450 in vaccine-related expenses were deemed denied and not reimbursed. $521,123 in first responder COVID-related expenses were also not reimbursed, likely a lot of overtime or shift strength coverage. This produces a total deficit of $676,242 required funding. This is not a unique situation. Many communities face similar remaining deficits due to timing delays, evolving guidance, and program closures. The Department of Revenue, through Bulletin 25-2, has instructed municipalities that all unreimbursed COVID-19 deficits must be fully provided for no later than the 27 tax rate setting. To place this in statewide context, the Department of Revenue reports that across Massachusetts, 59 communities carried COVID-related balance sheet deficits totaling $54.2 million as of June 30th of 24. These deficits include unreimbursed CARES, FEMA, ARPA, ESSER, and other COVID-19 program expenses. This article reflects the town's intention to address this deficit proactively rather than defer action. The town has two options: raise $676,242 through next year's taxes, or appropriate $676,242 from free cash, which includes prior COVID-related surpluses already closed to free cash. Had the reimbursement process been more clear and more timely between 2020 and 2022, these expenses would have been charged directly to the general fund these expenses that had been charged directly to the These expenses would have been charged directly to the general fund at the time. Surplus appropriations were closed to free cash instead. Now the town needs to correct the deficit. Article 9 proposes transferring $676,242.77 from free cash to the FEMA Coronavirus Special Relief Fund to eliminate the deficit by the consolidation of unreimbursed COVID-19 response expenses.
Thank you. I'm going to open it to questions. Just checking. Okay, Don, go for it. Go ahead.
Jennifer, two questions. You just mentioned that had these been processed in a timely way, they would have been charged the general fund. And then you followed that up with surplus appropriations were closed to free cash. Could you provide, I think it would be helpful for the citizens to see that the funds were there and they are now sitting in free cash.
Right. I would have to look back into the 2020 closing books and the 2021 closing books, which I can certainly do and prepare. I have not actually itemized that out by year to see what was returned to free cash, but we know that free cash was building during those years.
Well, that statement really lit a light bulb in my head, because it implies then that this isn't spending that was unanticipated. It's simply money's been parked in free cash. But if that's not true, we shouldn't make that claim.
Can I may respond?
Yeah.
My take on what happened in my world in COVID-19,
Yeah.
dealing with the finance,
It was different.
it was very difficult to keep straight your CARES Act and your FEMA reimbursements, because in so many cases, those same expenses would qualify for both reimbursement programs at different times. So in many cases, we would spend something, apply to FEMA, not know if it was going to be reimbursed, then move the expense to the CARES money and use that, and then move it back. And in some cases, those things, we should have just charged the general fund and taken the FEMA money and deposited it into the general fund, but not knowing through those 3 years of what they were going to reimburse, we all parked our expenses outside of the general fund.
Okay. So the second question is about those three sources of funding, the CARES, FEMA, and ARPA. In my time of paying closer attention than normal to the town's finances, I've heard many references to the use of ARPA funds for various purposes. And I think that in each case, in the discussion, there was no sense that perhaps we need to hold some of this for actual COVID-related expenses. So would it be possible to add to that slide, that's the second slide under this Article 9, the amount of funds that were received under each of those, from each of those sources? I don't think it's necessarily related to this article, but it does make me wonder, well, what did we use that money for? Yeah, okay, thanks.
I will note that there were some ARPA funds that were used for what was clearly not going to be reimbursed at that time when it was known. So we did use ARPA funds for certain expenses, particular emergency response staff in like the health department or things like that. So we did use ARPA funds for some expenses, so that is already reduced our total.
Carla, next question.
Just a clarification for you, Jennifer. When you say the first responder expenses were not reimbursed, they were unreimbursed, is that unreimbursed from FEMA or from some other organization?
From a combination, so I think basically what we all did in this time was we applied first to FEMA, and if they denied the costs eventually, we applied to the state CARES fund. And then if it was deemed not within their guidelines of allowable expenditures, then we funded it in some other way, some other local grants, contributions, things like that, or through the general fund. But we were able to basically determine that it was our emergency response that was causing, that caused the extra in unreimbursed expenses. It was all due to timing.
Thank you. Anyone online?
Paul Rodriguez?
Deborah, I think you said it, but I just want to double check that with this funding, it will close all liabilities on the balance sheet for COVID-19 in that period. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to confirm it.
If that's all the questions from the Finance Committee, do we have any questions or comments from the public? Anyone in the room, please approach the microphone.
Ready? Mary Hartman, 16 Concord Green, member of the Select Board, speaking on my own behalf. The reimbursement from the three entities, I understand that the third one, ARPA, I understood that to be up to our discretion how we spent that money. and we still have until the end of the year to spend some of that money. So I'm wondering, is there any flexibility in the ARPA money that we had? I think it was a total of $6 million altogether. But do we have any discretion with the $6 million that we got and have some money remaining to use that to offset some of this spending?
One of the provisions of the ARPA program was that all funds must be obligated by December 2024. So all of our ARPA funds are essentially tied up at the moment. I still need to get additional guidance whether any unexpended projects might be able to fund this. Like if a project was given a grant of $100,000 and they're only spending 57, could we use the remaining 43? I don't know if we can divert it according to the guidance that we have from ARPA where it needed to be obligated specifically. And they have until December 31st of 2026 to spend those funds. So we have to set our tax rate early December, and so we wouldn't have that extra funding at that time necessarily.
Mary, if you have a follow-up, you want to go to the microphone?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering if we could have an update later to see if in fact there are any projects that underspent that we could use to bring this number down, and also if there's any flexibility in, I know that we had to basically declare how we were going to spend that money, but I understood we still had some flexibility as long as it was a loss of revenue. So I would just like to get an update later to find out what monies are available to lower that amount.
Dean Banfield, 73 Walden Terrace. I was on the Finance Committee when we were going through this, so I fully appreciate the complexity that you are dealing with. The school committee has the same complexity, but I haven't heard this kind of assessment and truing up of their books. Is that going to happen separately for the funds that were directed directly to the schools, or is that included in your numbers and the work you're doing?
I believe at this time the schools have trued up and fully expended their ESSER funds. Those are a different bucket of money from the federal government that was just for schools. And I referenced it verbally, I didn't put it on the slide. They had fully expended their ESSER funds and basically done kind of a reallocation through their general fund in order to get that to zero. There is one fund available that we are using to net this to the total that it is. That was for mask reimbursements, and it came so late in the entire scheme of things that nobody knew what to do with it, and it's sitting on the books untouched. It was for COVID-19 expenses for masks, but that prior year where those were received, so the expenses were in a prior year closed, and there was no putting it back into the prior year, so it's been sitting as an available fund balance. So we're using that to net this down to the 676.
Any questions online, Ryan?
There are no questions online.
Okay, Jennifer, thank you.
Oh, I get to take a break.
Let's move on to the next article, which is Article 12, Municipal Facilities Planning. And who's going to be presenting that?
Good evening, Mark Howell for the Select Board. Just checking. Great. Article 12 requests $600,000 from free cash for strategic municipal planning. This article provides necessary resources to address critical, well-documented needs. There are three substantial program areas: the Public Works Campus, which is failing and inadequate, the public safety facilities, which are also inadequate and inefficient, and an opportunity to gain efficiencies through consolidation of some of the town and schools' 18 different office locations in town. Existing town facilities are aging and costly to maintain. The needs are substantial, and coordinated planning is required to address these needs. This funding will allow the town to effectively build and respond to the needs as we understand them from prior work. In 2020, TBA Architects provided a facilities assessment which documented the number of deficiencies that I just referenced in building and facilities. Most recently, the Land Use Working Group, sponsored by the Select Board last year and into this year, has begun to explore solutions for these critical program areas. Their efforts included evaluating facilities conditions, looking at prior reports and sites, and identifying some possible paths forward. The Land Use Working Group is still working, but their Phase 1 recommendations are already in. The leading solution for public works will involve the MCI site, freeing up the Keyes Road campus for potential other uses. Public safety will require an expanded presence in West Concord, which means that a site will probably need to be acquired. Municipal consolidation efforts can improve both efficiency and provide ways to offset some of those costs, but they'll need to be initiated. All of this is conceptual and needs refinement, which requires resources provided by this article. What the work revealed is that the facility decisions are interconnected, and there will be significant capital costs on the order of over $100 million across the programs and across 10 to 15 years. How sequencing and offsets can be planned and managed to manage the impact to citizens. Broad community engagement will be required, and an integrated roadmap is needed. Decisions such as what to give a given town property should be retained, redeveloped, or disposed of will be part of this analysis. Here's a sample of the kind of questions that we can see answered by this effort. The work proposed in Article 12 will help us answer questions like how to use Peabody, Ripley, or other freed up town office sites, and what comes first, and refine what it is all likely to cost. The planning phase will deliver feasibility analyses, financial models, and give the community opportunities to indicate preferences between paths forward. It will result in a prioritized capital strategy for what is anticipated to be a 10 to 15 or possibly longer year roadmap. It'll be analogous to the school's master plan that was presented in the early 2000s that led to the replacement of all 5 educational facilities here in Concord. In short, this will enable us to transition from the recommendations in the Phase 1 report of the Land Use Working Group to an integrated plan that brings forward a disciplined long-term strategy that's geared towards efficient operations and effective delivery of town services. So we'll be urging your support for this strategic capital plan work. I know this committee is often putting the question to the various town boards about how do they obtain efficiencies. You obtain efficiencies through planning. This article is about planning. Thank you. I'll take questions.
Thank you, Mark. All right, let's begin with John. Do you have a question?
Yes. Can you just tell us how that amount was determined, how long that amount will last, and also who's going to be receiving the $600,000? Someone who gets paid.
We're expecting that it will fund the planning, think early concepts to plan for about 12 to 18 months. And this is going to be in addition to and in parallel with some of the work that's going on for MCI. If you want to compare it to something, last year for the MCI Vision and Concept Report, we spent $400,000 of state funds just for that one campus, which is a complicated campus and far more complicated than any of our individual properties are, but that kind of gives you an order of magnitude. So when you think about the value of these facilities, it's a very small down payment on the planning. It's going to be used for things like feasibility analysis of whether particular properties can be redeveloped, what their highest and best use might be, whether that would be retained for future use for the town, reconfigured to better serve their needs, or potentially be made available to be disposed of in a way that might provide capital resources that would be available for future projects.
Don? George? Don?
Mark, how much money did the town appropriate for this last year from free cash? Was it $250,000?
The town did appropriate $250,000 from free cash last year for additional MCI planning. And we are currently using that funds along with $250,000 of state funds and an additional $100,000 of ARPA funds to advance the MCI project to a master plan phase. So as I mentioned just before in response to John's question, this effort is going on in parallel. Those funds were focused on the MCI campus, and as I mentioned, the MCI campus is likely part of the solution for this, specifically for DPW use, but it is not, none of those funds are available for example, planning a strategic public safety facility response plan or for consolidation of town offices. So this is a separate piece of work from that.
So following that, the select board appointed a committee of citizens to study the land use working group.
Yes.
Make recommendations. And I've followed that loosely, but when I look at the questions that this funding will help us answer, they seem so step one kind of questions, that as if we haven't done the land use working group. I thought perhaps detailed, specific scopes of work would emerge from that.
So
but this is everything. It's as if we haven't brought any focus to the question, and a lot of the questions you're looking to answer can be answered by the town, not by a consultant who doesn't know the town per se. They will say to you, well, what do you want to do? We'll draw that up. So I feel as though it feels to me like floundering a little. And maybe if we throw more money at the problem, we'll make some progress.
It's far from floundering. Let me respond to some of that. The land use working group isn't done. They broke their work plan up into two phases. The first phase was an identification of what the critical needs were and the critical opportunities. And those are the three major programs that I mentioned: a public works campus, public safety facilities improvements, and municipal consolidation. Then the second phase of their work involves analyzing all of the town properties and understanding what are the opportunities for use. We know we have Peabody sitting largely empty at the moment. What is the right answer for that? There is a small piece of work that's already been initiated with existing funds to put a value on it. What is the value of Peabody if it's redeveloped as a residential or it's sold off? So it'll answer that simple question. But what will not be answered in that is what is an effective strategic sequencing for should that building be used in any way, shape, or form? Should Ripley, for example, be consolidated in with the rest of the municipal facilities administration buildings to garner both the opportunity to use that site in a different way or and gain some of those efficiencies? Recognize, and I know it doesn't come before this board really very often, but the school committee did a facilities analysis of the Ripley building. That building is failing. Every elementary school built at the same time that Ripley was built has been replaced, some of them almost 2 decades ago. That building is an accident waiting to happen.
I've read those reports more.
Right, and this is the response to those reports. This is the broad-based look at what is the right plan to take all of these needs forward, because we can't simply wait for one of these buildings to fail and then tear our hairs out and say, what are we doing now? This is to give us that roadmap and make sure that that roadmap is well vetted and understood. If you remember the school's master plan, it was build a middle school first on the Sanborn site and consolidate the two middle school buildings into it, and then start rebuilding elementary schools. Guess what? We didn't do that, as anybody in this room would easily know, but we did have, at least once that plan was voted on by the town, it became clear that these were still priority needs and they needed to be addressed. And over the past 20 years, I'm happy to say we have addressed them, and the town's school system has benefited. It's time to do the same thing for the town's facilities.
So do you feel that we don't have enough information today to make those decisions?
We have enough information to conceptualize what the opportunities are, and the fact that MCI became available unlocks a potentially major piece by, creating flexibility that we didn't have. Now we need to take advantage of that and really solve this problem. It's a complex problem, and it will need a series of specific cost estimates. It'll require some requirements for these buildings we essentially create a shopping list, and from that shopping list we'll know what we're looking for and be able to recognize the opportunities. That's what this is about.
Thank you.
Any further questions? You can come. I've got two questions for you, Mark. One of them is, can you speak to the decision for these funds to be under the direction of the town manager, as opposed to the select board or a committee? So much of our work is done through groups like the Land Use Working Group and other citizen groups. So I have a question about that. Then I have a suggestion, which is that in your responses to Don, you were more specific about the goals of what you want to achieve with this money than the slide indicates. So for town meeting, some more specificity about that, I think, would be very useful. Obviously, there's been a lot of work done, and there should be a way to present it so that you capture that work and then describe what these funds will be doing to build on that work. Otherwise, for someone not familiar with the past work, it can sound a little duplicative. And I know it isn't intended to be. But anyway, that was my comment, but my question had to do with how the funds are being managed and how you came to the decision.
The discretion, under the direction of the town manager, is very standard language for any appropriation that we make, because the town manager is in fact the only person that can sign contracts on behalf of the town. So even when monies are, recommended or under the direction of a committee, it's the town manager that's actually doing that. So that's the specific answer to your question. To your broader point, I agree. We will be more specific in the presentation to town meeting. Those of you that have followed the Land Use Working Group know that those recommendations literally came out at the, essentially at the end of February, and we're still building to the specifics of what will happen. Also, the phase 2 work of the Land Use Working Group will be almost complete, and so we should have some better picture of what we need to do in the early phases. But I think that the broader point is, this is a fraction of a percentage. I mean, like a 0.02 kind of number compared to the value of these capital assets that we're talking about. And, and I know, I mean, not to pick on any particular project, but I saw a mile of trail on the CPC going for $600,000. So if you think about the magnitude of the questions that we're asking and trying to answer here, this is a very small down payment on that kind of efficiency.
Okay, thank you. Lindsay, did you have a question?
Just one comment on that piece, that there's also the opportunity cost of continuing to delay decisions on certain properties
Right.
too, which is that's a real cost to the taxpayer.
Yeah,
So.
we can put a number on that for Peabody, as you well know.
So I'm going to continue. Carlin, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. We've had some discussion about how the dollar amount was determined. I'm interested in finding out when the dollar amount was determined, because the warrant that was sent out to the households in the Concord Bridge did not have a dollar amount associated with this article. The report submitted as part of Phase 1 from the Land Use Public Working Group did not have a dollar amount associated with this article. We in Finance Company didn't know the dollar amount till yesterday, and it went from to be determined to $600,000. I understand what you're doing with this. I understand how it's going to be fruit, but when did you make the determine to go for 600?
I've been working with a group of town staff members on this analysis, and it has been informed by some of the reports and frankly information gaps that the Land Use Working Group has already identified on town properties, and it's also been informed by the information that we've gathered by looking at what master planning is costing us, or is costing. Fortunately, we're not actually on the hook for it, for MCI. So we're learning as we go, and we think that this will advance this effort to get us the kind of answers that we're looking for in the time frame that I specified. So the when is in the last couple of weeks, which explains exactly why you got the numbers when you did.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. I'm going to encourage you to follow Lois's suggestion to have at town meeting in the briefing book, perhaps a page that describes some of these, so you can get more detail that as it fleshes out. I think that would be useful for them.
We did have an eye-test version of that and elected not to do it, but I think it is good content for the briefing book, and we'll take that under consideration.
So, any Finance Committee members online?
No hands up.
Okay, let's go first to the room for comments and questions, and then we'll go
Sven.
back online.
Yes, Sven Weber, 50 Belknap, co-chair of the Land Use Working Group. I would hope that the Finance Committee will be supportive of Article 12. There's, as you mentioned, a lot of content developed along the three working paths we had: public works, fire and police, and municipal consolidation. We identified a lot of very concrete questions and how the path forward can look like. There are questions like, can the current Walden Street Fire and Police building be renovated or not? We need an expert for that, to looking at that. So having said that, I think I would agree that this one slide should be more concrete and give the voters more context to it. And I'm happy to, if needed, to provide some more input for the select board to write this slide out. On the other question is how much was already spent on this. So as of the end of Phase 1, the Land Use Working Group hasn't spent money on that, just to be on the records, although there is some ARPA funding available for work that is getting authorized within this current fiscal year. So just to make clear that there wasn't a lot of spending until this point. Yeah, thank you.
Any comments? Anyone else in the room? I see no one. Anyone online?
There are no hands up online.
Okay, in that case, Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will move on to Article 19.
Article 19, to establish a capital stabilization fund. Article 19 proposes establishing a capital stabilization fund, which is authorized under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B. Creating this fund will allow the town to better plan for capital needs and maintain long-term financial stability. Following last year's annual town meeting, the Select Board developed and approved the charge for the Financial Policy Working Group, and members were nominated to serve on the committee. Don Kupka, Wendy Ravelli, and Lois Wassoff met with the interim CFO on August 28, 2025, and over the course of the next 6 meetings, discussed and refined an updated financial reserves policy for adoption at the December 11, 2025 Select Board meeting. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, municipalities may establish special purpose stabilization funds. These funds serve as reserve accounts designed to support financial stability and provide flexibility. They allow a community to set aside money for future needs, including long-term capital improvements or unforeseen emergencies. This type of fund helps reduce reliance on tax increases or borrowing when large expenses arise. Creating a special purpose stabilization funds is a familiar and effective financial practice in Concord. A fund's purpose can be defined narrowly. For example, supporting one specific project or purpose, or it could be defined more broadly, encompassing multiple future capital projects or a long-term capital improvement plan. Establishing a capital stabilization fund gives the town a structured way to plan for capital needs over time. The financial reserve policy outlines funding targets, availability, usage, examples, and a short description. For the capital stabilization, a target balance for the fund will be based on anticipated capital expenditures. Annually, the town manager and CFO will review the fund to ensure it aligns with the town's long-term financial goals. And importantly, any appropriations from the fund can only be made by a vote at town meeting. Establishing a capital stabilization fund will strengthen our financial position by giving the town a dedicated mechanism to plan, save, and invest in capital needs.
I'm going to start with the Finance Committee. With any questions for Jennifer on this? I see none. Anybody online with any questions?
No hands are up.
I should, to give some context, this is something that's been discussed regularly at the Finance Committee, so if we are quiet, it does not indicate a lack of interest. It indicates that we've all worked very hard on this process, and I think, any questions online about it?
There are no questions online.
Okay, so then let's move on to the appropriation to the Capital Stabilization Fund and see if that triggers some questions.
That recent presentation teed up the next two. Following the establishment of Capital Stabilization Fund, the Financial Policy Working Group, along with myself and the town manager, are presenting a transfer of $1.25 million from free cash to seed the fund. Our goal is to proactively strengthen our financial position and prepare for upcoming capital needs. Our financial reserve policy provides the framework for how we manage reserves. Town policy requires us to maintain free cash at or above 4% of the general fund budget, which is approximately $5.9 million. If free cash combined with the general stabilization fund exceeds 10% of the general fund budget, about $14.8 million, we are encouraged to consider using the excess for one-time capital projects or to allocate funds into stabilization. These guidelines help ensure long-term financial stability and reduce the risk of unexpected tax impacts. Here's our current financial picture. Free cash stands at $17 million. After subtracting pending annual town meeting appropriations of $2.4 million, the assumed available balance is $14.6 million. Our general stabilization fund currently has $1.1 million. These figures provide the baseline for determining how much capacity we have to strengthen our reserves. Let's do weird things. This slide shows how our available funds compare with our reserve targets. Assumed available free cash is approximately 14.6. while the target minimum is just under 5.9 million. Over 5.9. This leaves a surplus in the range of $5.7 to $8.7 million. The General Stabilization Fund, however, is underfunded relative to its $5.9 million target by roughly $4.8 million. Remember, the policy states that the target of the two combined aims for 10%. The Capital Stabilization Fund currently, hopefully, will exist at this point in the town meeting. It has no balance, and the target will be defined as part of a broader capital planning work. These numbers illustrate why this appropriation is both responsible and timely. Looking ahead, Article 12 includes a 5 to 15-year plan for municipal facilities. We know that major capital needs are coming, whether building upgrades, infrastructure improvements, or acquisitions. By contributing to the Capital Stabilization Fund now, while free cash levels are strong, we position the town to fund these needs thoughtfully rather than reactively. This is an opportunity to save today to reduce future financial pressure. Administration, with the concurrence of the Financial Policy Working Group, as representatives of the Finance Committee and Select Board, believe that a transfer of $1.25 million from free cash to the Capital Stabilization Fund is appropriate and timely. This action aligns with financial policy, supports long-term capital planning, and strengthens the town's fiscal stability.
Thank you. So why don't I start in this direction? Carlin, do you have any questions?
No, for this article.
Okay. Let's go this way. Questions in the room?
How did you come up with $1.25 million?
That was about a 20-minute conversation that circled around what's an appropriate amount to put forward for both general and for capital. We basically collectively thought $2 million into savings sounds kind of feasible and appropriate, but we didn't want to necessarily do a 50-50 split, so we talked about 1.5 and 500. We talked about 1 1/4 and 750. We talked about all sorts of different scenarios, and this is just kind of where we landed, and it settled and felt right.
And actually, the "we" in that sentence was the Financial Policy Working Group.
Sorry.
So, and Don may want to add to this, but part of the thinking, I believe, in our group was the Capital Stabilization Fund is, I think of it as the way we're going to avoid getting hit by the train we see coming. We know that these substantial capital needs are coming up until we're further down the road. The work's being done now, the work being done by the Land Use Working Group, the MCI group, the work that is going to be funded, the planning work that will be funded by the other article we heard about tonight. Those will define better what our needs are, but we know there will be needs. So the important thing this year was to establish the fund and to put some seed money into it that can begin to earn interest. When you have a special purpose fund like this, the interest that the fund earns stays with the fund, so it grows over time. It's like a savings account. And we can make decisions in future years when we have more specificity about when things are happening and what the anticipated costs will be, what the right numbers are to add. But this felt like a good beginning, substantial enough to get us started, but giving us flexibility without overburdening free cash. So I think, that was part of my reasoning. And Don, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you said it very well, Lois. It's to prepare for the train we see coming down the track. Thanks.
Okay. If I can put this into a little bit of context, the Middle School Stabilization Fund was seeded with $2 million, and then additional additions of 1.5 and 1 million over 3 years. So we took that $2 million kind of as maybe a benchmark to start and discussed splitting it between the two stabilizations for stability.
And we know that has been, we heard that
Effective.
article at our last hearing, but we know that the fact that stabilization fund was set up in anticipation of the borrowing to build the middle school is making a difference in the tax rates paid by Concord citizens.
No, I was just wondering how you came up with 1.2 million since we have so much
Yeah.
free cash this year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So do we have any,
Yes, Paul Rodriguez has his hand up.
Paul?
Lois and everybody, thank you for the context. I think it's very useful and informative to understand some of the logic that went into a lot of the deliberations and the discussions. It would be very useful for town meeting also to try to provide some of that context, as well as providing some context associated with, because there's a stabilization fund, that there are some requirements associated with using that fund that some of the general public might not know, so that it does highlight that we're saving for a rainy day, but that they're going to be asked for permission to use that money in the future, and it's not just squirreled away and forgotten.
Yeah, those are good suggestions. Let's open it up to the public. Do we have anyone in the room who wanted to speak? The entire select board would like to speak.
Mary Hartman, 16 Concord Green. Speaking for myself. First of all, I want to thank you for the work you did as far as looking at the policies. That is very helpful as far as separating out between one-time expenses and then money available for reserves. I think that's brilliant. I just wanted to note that when you put the slide up that showed what was available for reserves, those numbers didn't exactly jive with what I've been collecting when I looked at the articles that came up, so you might want to check that arithmetic again as far as what's available for reserves. But I also think that when I first started to come to town meeting, what I was interested in is what's the balance going to be in cash flow, in free cash, if we approve all of these articles.
Mhm.
So including the $2 million that we have split between the two reserves. So I'd like to see that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Paul Bohm, 11 Ridgewood Road, member of the Select Board, asking a question for myself. If we had a crystal ball and we knew sort of what the capital needs were going forward, is there a target for a capitalization fund, a fully funded capitalization fund, or is it just as much as we can afford each year? What's the dynamic going forward?
You want to take it?
I think at this point, on this day, we don't know what that target's going to be because we don't know what the plan is. Once the plan becomes a little bit more formed as to all three of those different areas of the municipal facilities explorations, then we'll start to define kind of what we think we need in savings in order to support that as those projects get launched and are worked through so that we have it available when it comes time to pay for it.
So as a yardstick, would you say that the middle school stabilization fund and the middle school capital needs, that was a good model for what we're going to need? As a percentage?
It was definitely a good model, and we'll take that into consideration as how effective it was, and it was effective, which we saw the other night when we discussed the release of the middle school stabilization funds. So we'll definitely take that as a yardstick, but the longer the process takes, the higher that price tag goes. So setting a target right now is not feasible.
I appreciate the example about the middle school, and I was going to mention that the town has actually created a stabilization fund for each of the school projects that we've done in the last 20 years and used them very effectively to mitigate the tax impact in the early years of the borrowing for those projects. And so I think the suggestion here is that on the slide where you mentioned a specific project, it might be a good idea, as we have in the 5 school building projects that we've done in the last 20 years. That's been a positive experience. We've set these stabilization funds up for specific projects, and my expectation is that this capital stabilization fund now replaces the need to create those individual stabilization funds off into the future. Thank you.
That's a good point.
Dean Banfield again. I think this is a wise decision by the town when we are flush in our free cash position to be able to put some money aside. I think it's a good idea, and this is identified for capital needs as opposed to general stabilization. The thing I think I would like to point out, though, is that we are flush because we have overtaxed the citizens. Somehow we have arrived at a very large balance in our free cash, and we are now pulling that down, putting it into different pockets. But the fact of the matter is, taxes have risen substantially, and our free cash balance shows it. So I just thought I'd point that out.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Wendy Ravelli, member of the Select Board. But speaking on behalf of being a policy member that created this policy, I just want to let the public know that while this is one large general fund, and Mark did mention that we've historically created individual funds, it is our intent that we will account for specific projects as they come up. So we will make deliberate designations at the right time, and therefore even interest that accrues against certain projects, we'll be able to do that from an accounting perspective. It's also probably worth noting that when we did the middle school stabilization fund, I think we had a practice of, we took the exact same approach. We had a minimum and we said, do we have free cash? And made that decision at that time, which is much like the decision we made when we realized we had about $2 million to work with. So in this case, we split it 1.25 here for the capital, and the other you'll hear in the next article. Thank you.
Is there anybody online?
Peggy has her hand up. Peggy?
Hello. Well, Dean really kind of, I think, hit the nail on the head. I think for the presentation and as we go forward toward town meeting, it feels like we have a lot of free cash, and just how to designate it, where to put it, how to take it out is going to be, a really important, comprehensive presentation. And I would suggest that maybe someone be designated to spearhead a broader presentation at town meeting that's not article by article, like, someone from the select board to talk about their overall approach to all this money and why we have so much and whatnot.
In past years, the town moderator has been generous enough to give the Finance Committee some time at town meeting to do a summary presentation, and it might be useful. We can talk about this, Peggy. I hear what you're saying, that maybe there should be a presentation that precedes these couple of articles that involve stabilization funds, establishing and funding them, and create some of that context around it. So I think...
And also, why we're not allocating it to this year's tax rate.
Yeah.
Which, has really jumped up. We've been worrying about this for the last several years. Why are we not putting this a little bit more toward the current tax rate? So, that's all.
Excuse me.
Lois, can I add one point?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Paul, I wanted to address your question a little bit. If you think about the average citizen paying their taxes, having an unusual spike one year creates a problem for a family's budget or an individual's budget. So one of the purposes of a capital stabilization plan is to manage the tax increase so that we don't put that undue burden at one point in time, because capital expenditures are lumpy. And so that's been done for the middle school to manage to take the top off of the interest expense while other debt is expiring. And so the target actually becomes a function of expiring debt along the years, and then how do we manage that overall capacity without causing an undue burden in an individual, suddenly a step function, if you will. That's the kind of the ideal of this. Whether or not it's possible with when I heard that it's $100 million plan, I thought was, well, maybe we need 80 million in the reserve. I'm just kidding. It's not possible. So it'll just take a little of the off the top.
Lois, may I add one point? The free cash, to address the point made for how we build free cash. One, it is tax revenue that maybe wasn't used, unexpended, but it also includes surplus revenues over our expected revenues. And in fiscal 24, we had additional income of $1.9 million from investments from the middle school project borrowing that we turned back into free cash. So we earned money on our borrowing within the limits, but we have that's part of our surplus. That $1.9 million was kind of a gift we were not expecting, and that adds to our free cash as well.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah. One more.
Court Booth, 144 Wright Road. Just a minor point or question, Jennifer. On the previous slide, you referred to the 5 to 15-year plan, implying that we have a plan that's fully baked. Should it read anticipated plan, just to really inform people?
I'm hoping by town meeting we will have more clarification on a potential timeline, and we can reference that. And I appreciate that this article comes after that municipal facilities discussion, so the timing is the ordering. Whoever ordered this warrant, I think, did very well. I'm just saying, congratulations. The articles tend to build, so we will make sure that gets cleaned up and identified.
So I think if there's no more comments.
We do have one question.
We have one? Okay,
online.
go ahead.
So Christine Reynolds.
Thank you. Chris Reynolds, Captain Miles Lane. Lois, this might be for you. I'm just trying to understand the policy. So does the policy arrange somewhere between 5.9 million and 14.8 million? Is that where you think free cash should be, in that range? I'm just trying to understand it.
The policy is the policy that Jennifer is referring to was adopted by the Select Board in December of last year. It evolved over the series of meetings that the Financial Policy Working Group had, and with input from the Finance Committee and the Select Board. So rather than digress into that, Chris, I would refer you to the policy. It sets target ranges as a percentage of our operating budget.
Yes.
And so that will vary. And so the numbers on Jennifer's slide are illustrative of our present circumstances, but the target, but it's done as a percentage, and the percentages were arrived at through a lot of research on guidance from the state, what's done in other towns, past practice in Concord. It was a long process, so I'd refer you to that. But we should give some thought about how to illustrate that in the slides, because those numbers might end up being inadvertently misleading because they're applying to a specific moment in time. So, thank you.
Yeah, I'm still trying to connect the dots between the slides. So if like the one that says available funds, so if there's a quote, a surplus in free cash, how do you end up with, and there's a deficit in the general stabilization. I understand you're going to address it over time. You don't necessarily want to fund it all at once. But how do you decide then to pull $2 million from free cash? Why isn't it $5 million? I'm just trying to get, I understand what you said earlier, but as a reader of the slides, I'm still confused as to how you ended up there. And to Dean's point, well, it looks like you have all this stuff left over. Why didn't you put some, and maybe you did. How much is going to be in, how much of free cash is against the taxes this year?
There isn't any free cash applied against taxes. We don't have a separate article for that this year.
No. Oh, so there's zero. Okay. Yeah, so I definitely have that question, and then is,
Yeah. No,
why
there-
not? You have some.
Yeah, that is not something that, we didn't do that last year either, I think. Yeah, we've stopped doing that.
Oh,
So,
okay.
It-
That would
we-
be my question as to why not?
That's a-
if you
that's
have all
a-
this
that's a-
surplus?
that's not
It was
specifically-
It was Dean's question, so it's the same one for
Yeah, well,
me.
we're digressing a little off the article.
Yep,
And
that's fine.
we still have some progress to make, but, it's something we can talk about at other times. But I think we've moved through this article. So unless there's any other specific comments about the article, and Carmen is approaching the microphone.
Carmen Reese, 52 Devon Street. It's just a question about the balances that were shown on the balance slide. Would those reflect the returns to the funds that were happening early on?
Yes.
Yes? So you've already taken that into account in those balances? Thanks.
Yeah, Lois, we have one.
Someone online?
Yes,
Okay.
Diane Proctor.
Diane?
Hi, thank you very much, and thank you for all this presentation. Lois made a really important point, and I think we need to figure out a way to do it, which is to have an opportunity for the town. The league tried to set this up a couple of Fridays ago, but inclement weather and the ice storm made it impossible. So a chance for the FinCom to be able to explain how these things are managed and how they're created, and maybe Jennifer could join in that conversation. There might be an opportunity, therefore, for us to film such an event and such a conversation and make it available to the town. So I hope you'll take that into consideration. Thank you very much. 57 Sudbury Road, I apologize.
Okay, thank you, Diane.
If you are looking, that meeting that discussion happened at is posted on Minuteman Media
That is an excellent point.
Network. It was a recorded Zoom meeting where we had that deliberation. I watched it the other day just to refresh my memory on that conversation where we landed on the amounts that we were
The Financial
suggesting.
Policy Working Group is a constituted committee with minutes, packets, recorded meetings, open to the public. They get a little nerdy, but anyone who'd like to join us.
I would say it's the most recent posted meeting.
So, all right, so let us move on now to, we're not done with stabilization. We're going to move on to Article 21, which is the transfer to the General Stabilization Fund.
Article 21 asks the town to transfer $750,000 from free cash to the General Stabilization Fund as printed in the warrant. This transfer supports the town's long-term financial stability and maintains compliance with our adopted financial reserve policy. The General Stabilization Fund functions as the town's financial savings account available to support any lawful municipal purpose. It acts as an emergency reserve. It's designed to provide financial protection in significant or unexpected events. Both of these aspects of the definition are important to remember as we set up the town for a fiscally responsible future. There are several reasons to build, maintain, and strengthen this reserve. The funds remain available for appropriation at all times, not just after certification like free cash. The account retains its own investment earnings, contributing to long-term growth. Any expenditures require a 2/3 vote of town meeting, ensuring careful stewardship. And most importantly, rating agencies consider the stabilization fund a key factor when evaluating the town's bond rating, affecting borrowing costs for capital projects. Circling back to the points made in Article 20, the town's financial policy establishes two important thresholds. The general stabilization fund should be maintained at a minimum of 4% of the ensuing general fund budget. When funds are withdrawn, the town should aim to ensure that free cash plus the stabilization fund together represent at least 10% of the ensuing general fund budget. These standards position the town to retain financial flexibility and maintain strong fiscal health. For FY27, the projected general fund budget is $147,919,072. I believe that's going to change with the CCRSD number, so that will get updated, which sets the 4% stabilization target at $5,916,763. Our current stabilization balance is $1.1 million, leaving a significant gap between actual and target reserves. Tonight's proposed transfer is a step toward moving the town closer to that target. Discussion at the Financial Policy Working Group suggested a 10-year funding plan to gradually build the stabilization fund. This graphic incorporates planned annual town meeting transfers in blue, projected year-end balances, total stacks, and evolving 4% target as the budget grows over time. These projections demonstrate that consistent annual contributions, such as the $750,000 being proposed tonight, are essential for meeting future reserve goals. Article 21 proposes transferring $750,000 from free cash into the general stabilization fund. This action supports our long-term fiscal plan, strengthens the town's reserve, and aligns with our adopted financial policies.
Thank you, Jennifer. Do I see any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Carlin has one.
Oh, and it's a big one. Okay, so can we afford everything we want? That's the overarching question. I've done some back-of-the-envelope calculations, and at some point, Jennifer, I'd appreciate if you would verify that my information is correct. I'm just going to very briefly go through this, basing it on the free cash of roughly $17 million, subtracting out Articles 7, 9, 12, 20, 21, and 13, gives a remaining free cash of roughly $12.6 million. Add that to the General Stabilization Fund of $1.1 million to get a free cash plus General Stabilization Fund for fiscal year 27 of $13.7 million. That $13.7 million compared to the budget of $147 million, total budget, is 9.32%.
Sounds about right.
That's about right? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Good. Glad I can add. I do have one question about that calculation. Well, this is important stuff. You think about this. Article 13 is the school authorization that's trying to get reimbursement for the homeless transportation cost of $183,681. My understanding from how that article works is the schools are out that money. We're going to reimburse the schools, but but the town's general fund may be reimbursed by the state. And yet, by you putting in your calculation, you're assuming no reimbursement from the state? What's going on with that?
That amount is funds that have already been received and are accounted for in free cash at closing.
Okay, so it really should stay in that calculation?
Yes.
For all that. Okay, the last question I have is on your chart that shows the 10-year plan. Yes, that one that's up on the screen, I see that. It looks like the plan, the way this is presented, is $750,000 investment for fiscal year 27 and 28, dropping down then to about $500,000 for 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Is that your overall intent at this point for the level of investment in this General Stabilization Fund?
I started with a 2.5% increase to the budget. and created the target from there. So as I mapped out the 2.5% increase in the target for the budget, the 750,000 in these, so last year was $1 million, just over, 750,000 for 2 years and 500,000 thereafter brought us really close. If we had done 750 in the third year, it would actually tip us up over. So I left it at the 500. I played around with it a little bit.
All right. Thank you. That's it.
I also factored in interest earnings at, I believe, 2%.
Any other questions from Finance Committee members in the room? I am seeing none. Ryan, any Finance Committee members online?
Actually, yeah.
Donna and Lindsay.
I just had.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just had a question about. Just remind me from last year. I think we went over this a bunch because we were talking about transfers to stabilization funds. But until free cash is certified, the interest earned on the free cash goes to the state and not to the town. Is that right? Or no? Okay.
Free cash is our money.
Right.
It sits in our books as undesignated funds. Once we have certified free cash, that becomes the balance that we are allowed to appropriate. It is still our money. We earn interest on that money throughout the year. We just aren't allowed to spend that money.
Yep. Okay,
until
so
it's
the
certified.
interest earned is, it doesn't matter where it is. It'll still earn interest.
Yes. Interest would, on free cash stays in the general fund. Interest on the stabilization fund stays in the stabilization
Okay, and then are they invested differently?
Yes.
So can you clarify that a little bit so people understand the expected rate of return and the risk associated?
Yep, so our stabilization funds, along with our OPEB fund and our pension reserve, are in managed funds. Our free cash is sitting in a bank account down the street. So think about where your investments might be progressing at some significant pacing in various points in the year versus the interest rates at your bank just sitting on cash. There's a big difference.
Lois is okay?
No, go ahead.
Jennifer, I think two brief comments. One is it might be helpful to mention that this is a new policy, so that gap and closing the gap, it isn't something that's been neglected. And secondly, that maintaining that 10% combination of free cash and general stabilization is a key component to retaining a AAA bond rating. Thanks.
Yeah, that's good points. Okay, so any Finance Committee members online who would like to comment on this article?
Peggy has her hand up.
Okay.
Yes, very briefly, I want to thank Carlin for articulating the exact idea I had for town meeting, which is taking the whole thing and, bullet items to summarize where we wind up on free cash. I think we're underspending.
No further hands.
Okay, so in the room,
Carmen Reese, 52 Devon Street, Town Moderator. Can I assume, Jennifer, that this 10-year plan that we're looking at right here, it does have investment income in there, but does it assume any withdrawals from the stabilization fund? Okay, so this is if you don't touch it, this is what it looks like over time. I'm going to tell you that I in the future, I expect these articles to end up on the consent calendar. I don't think they can go there this year because it's too new and there's too much going on and there's too much policy that's recently been created. I like the idea of the Finance Committee doing a little presentation on what the Financial Policy Committee came up with as a policy, so people understand that. I would put something in the briefing book on that, maybe not the whole policy, but kind of an intelligible summary for people who want a quick snapshot of it. And I'm going to suggest that you might think about combining the presentations under 20 and 21 into one slide deck. We'll do the votes separately, but they're very similar. And so you could
If you're
probably,
amenable, I would love to do
yes,
that.
you could probably achieve a little bit of efficiency that way, and we'll still do the votes separately. Thanks.
I built them as one slide deck, all three, and then rearranged the slides where they fit best.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. Thanks.
I'm Mary Hartman, 16 Concord Green, speaking for myself. Quick question. So the purpose of this is to foresee any or to mitigate any emergencies, right? It's an emergency fund. It's
an emergency fund, but Jennifer can go back to the slide that gives the illustrations. It's
Right.
not just emergencies the way you think of as emergencies. It's also shortfalls in revenue.
Right.
you know.
It's called, but the word emergency is there. I guess my question I'm getting to is I know it requires 2/3 votes to get the money out of it, which is a high hurdle. Can funds be taken out for things that aren't in these categories?
Yeah.
With a vote? They can?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the monies, one of the things that we would emphasize in a presentation we do on this, or we can talk about it, one of the things we processed ourselves and tried to be very clear with in the policy is the difference between general stabilization fund and free cash. You access them differently. You have access to them in certain times of the year that you don't have access to free cash. So there are important differences. And, you know, the investment options, the money, the interest accruing to the fund, there's important differences. Yeah.
Mary, I would add that you can use a general stabilization fund for any purpose that you can use free cash for. There really isn't. It's not walled off.
Yeah.
More specifically, they both require a vote at town meeting, and by having a general stabilization fund, you actually have it available all year round. And if you needed a special town meeting before free cash was certified, you would have no ability to access it.
The draft that we have assumes no.
Yeah. And part of it, you know this because you were one of the people who voted on the policy, but in the policy there is a chart that summarizes this, and in the draft of the Finance Committee report and in the final Finance Committee report, there will be, that draft is replicated. That chart is replicated, so that the chart that summarizes what the goals are for each kind of fund and how they can be accessed is very cognizable. It's very easy to understand. So, okay, so we will be here for a while, but let's move on to the next article, if we can. Are you doing okay, Jennifer?
Doing fine.
Okay. So we're up to that perennial favorite, OPEB. So,
Article 22 asks town meeting to appropriate a total of $1,467,851 to the town's OPEB trust fund for FY27. This includes $1,387,565 to be raised and appropriated from the general fund, and transfers of, I'll read them all, $21,431 from the water fund, $9,139 from the sewer fund, $10,410 from the swim and fitness fund, and $39,306 from the broadband fund. This contribution supports the town's long-term commitment to funding retiree health insurance benefits. OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits, referring to retiree benefits other than pensions, primarily health insurance. In 2005, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board issued GASB Rules 45 and 47, later updated in 2015 to Rules 74 and 75, which required greater transparency and eliminated the former pay-as-you-go approach. These rules increased reporting requirements and placed a stronger emphasis on long-term funding. The town established its OPEB trust fund in 2008 through a special act of the legislature. In 2020, the trust was reauthorized under Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 20. Since 2009, the town has made annual contributions equal to the actuarial determined contribution, or ADC. This consistent funding strategy is a cornerstone of the town's long-term financial management. OPEB liabilities are valued annually by an actuary. As of January 1st, 2025, the town's total OPEB liability was $59 million. Of that amount, 74.9% is funded, equal to $44.2 million, and $14.8 million remains unfunded. The town's funding schedule assumes a 7% discount rate and a level payment methodology, and it fully amortizes the liability by 2036. The contribution allocations to departments outside the general fund is different for FY27 and is directed by the actuarial report issued in February of this year. The total appropriation is the same, however, at $1,467,851. You will note that the light fund has a $0 transfer this year, whereas in the past, the amount was built with just the general fund, the light fund, and the broadband fund. The actuarial adjustments eliminated the need for the light fund to contribute in this year. The amount is determined by the actuarial need for the total liability minus the cash contribution of the current fund, so the amount we budget. And so the difference in those numbers is where we see the extra appropriation. Article 22 requests the approval of the town's annual OPEB contribution for 27, continuing the long-standing commitment to fully funding retiree health insurance benefit obligations.
Let's begin. Any questions on the part of the Finance Committee? The only hand I see in the room is Carlin, so.
Jennifer, you mentioned that there's no contribution required for this year from the Light Enterprise Fund. What about the Stormwater or the PEG Access Enterprise Fund Special Revolving Accounts? What about those two?
Those two are also not requiring a contribution this year.
Okay, all right, but that may not be true for the next year.
The Stormwater Fund actually technically has no employees. It is supported by general fund employees, so that money comes through the general fund. And other costs are redirected through the indirect costs. The Minuteman Media has only 4 employees, and it hasn't been divided out. It wasn't significant enough to raise to the actuarial in 2025.
Okay, all right. Next question I have is the 7% discount rate over the last, 5-10 years. That rate has been changing. It's up to 7%. Is 7% still a reasonable discount rate for this trust? And if so, why?
I don't know the history of the change. I know it was at 6.5 for quite some time, but 7, I think, was recommended at one point. I haven't dug into the reason for that, but whereas we are at 76, almost 75% funded, I think that was the determination that it made sense for the amortization to the fully funding before the deadline set by the GASB 74-75. Go ahead, Carrie.
I actually think the response that Jennifer gave was very good. The change was made, I believe, a couple of years ago, as Jennifer mentioned, based upon the recommendation of our financial advisor, and it's in accordance with the investment policy for that particular fund.
Any questions from Finance Committee members online, Brian?
No hands are up.
So any questions in the room? I see none. Any questions online? None. Thank you. So let us move on to the next OPEB article, 23.
Article 23 seeks town meeting approval to appropriate $275,000 from the town's OPEB liability trust fund for OPEB-related expenses. This article also authorizes the OPEB trustee to engage reputable and knowledgeable investment consultants and to pay for those services directly from the OPEB fund. The OPEB trust fund expenditures support the administration, compliance, and investment management of the fund. They may include actuarial evaluation, budgeted at $25,000. This annual evaluation is required for the town's financial statements and audit reporting. Annual review of the town's funding plan, investment advisor and banking fees up to $250,000. This includes the cost of the investment consultant. Through a competitive request for proposal process, the town hired Fiducient, whose contractual fee in fiscal '27 is $37,130. There is no trustee compensation proposed at this time, though the allowance exists for future years if needed. An investment advisor plays a critical fiduciary role in ensuring the long-term success of the OPEB trust. Several responsibilities are indicated on this slide: identifying short and long-term investment objectives, developing target asset allocations, making adjustments as market conditions evolve, and monitoring performance to ensure compliance with the town's investment policy statement and state law, including tracking results against the benchmark. This professional oversight is essential to safeguarding the fund and maximizing long-term returns. Article 23 asks town meeting to appropriate $275,000 from the OPEB trust fund for required administrative, actuarial, and investment management expenses, and to authorize the trustee to employ qualified investment advisors using trust assets. I will note that this is just an appropriation. This does not mean $275,000 is spent each year. It is just enough in case we need to make changes.
Thank you. Questions from the committee on this article? I see nothing in the room. Ryan, any hands online?
No hands up online.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about this article in the room? None. Anybody online? Thank you.
May I ask the moderator, are these articles candidates for the consent calendar?
They have been in the past.
And I don't need an answer now. We just throw that out there.
Okay.
We can move on.
Let's move on to Article 24, which is the PFAS settlement funds.
Good evening. I'm Darren LaFlamme. I've been your water and sewer superintendent for 11 months now. Article 24 is an administrative bookkeeping request. Concord Public Works Water and Sewer Department contracted with SL Environmental Law Group to represent us in multi-district litigation against PFAS manufacturers. In 2025, we received our first settlements totaling $657,526.79 from the 3M settlements. We expect to receive approximately $1 million in total from the 3M settlements after expenses, and up to an additional $1 to $2 million from settlements with the other manufacturers in coming years. These settlements fall under Mass General Law 4453. All recipients must be paid into town treasury and credited to the general fund. However, Chapter 77 of the Acts of 2023, Section 9, amended this law with Clause 5, which specifically addresses PFAS settlements. Place PFAS settlements into a special revenue fund. Appropriation, spend money only after vote at town meeting. And that's where we are this evening, walking through this process. Here are the defendants. We're working with 3M now. Their account has been litigated. DuPont and Tyco BASF is to come. Here is the process that we're following. We're starting to receive PFAS settlement funds. We need an account to deposit them into, a special revenue fund. It needs to be presented to Finance Committee. Here we are. It needs to be appropriated at town meeting, and funding available for use for PFAS projects. That includes testing, engineering, construction of PFAS mitigation. So we're again here asking for this bookkeeping request.
Thank you. We all know the drill. Questions from the Finance Committee? Carlin has one.
Darren, am I correct in understanding that the oversight over this fund will be through the Public Works Commission?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did we lose Ryan?
Yes, we did. Yes.
Okay, can somebody check to see if there are any hands up?
There are no
online?
hands.
Okay, no hands in the committee. Anyone else wanting to ask questions? I see no one in the room asking questions, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you all for doing what you're doing. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Okay.
Lois, Peggy has a question.
Oh, you do have a question, Paul? I'm sorry.
I don't, Peggy does.
Peggy, she just raised her
Peggy
hand.
does?
I'm sorry.
Called it.
So this is pretty much, this money goes into an enterprise fund.
We're about to lose the presenter, though. Don't leave, Darren.
Darren, come on back here, please.
I'm sorry, we've got one question
Yeah, we do have one
online.
question online.
He went right out the back door.
Darren, you're a very important person. We have a question for Peggy.
Almost made it out the door. All right, Peggy.
So this bit and the other bits pretty much go into the enterprise fund? Are they accounted in the enterprise fund?
They are. They will be. They're going to be used as retained earnings on future projects before we do any borrowing, PFAS-related projects.
So it comes into the general fund, gets moved into the
It's going to be a,
enterprise fund, and
it'll be a
kinda goes off the
special
general
revenue
fund.
account that will be spent on PFAS projects from testing, engineering, construction, and these will be approved by finally by the town manager.
Peggy,
No
is
more
that it?
questions.
Okay,
She has a couple.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. All right, we're going to move quickly through Article 49 because there is no motion under Article 49, which is unpaid bills, and we're going to move immediately to Article 50.
Yes, there is no action under Article 49. Article 50. Although the debt rescission article is an evergreen item in the warrant and usually has no motion, I wanted to take the opportunity this year to rescind $429,001 in excess borrowing authorization from 3 prior town meeting votes. These were previously approved borrowing authorizations that were never fully needed or utilized for their intended projects. This action is part of good financial housekeeping and ensures our authorized but unissued debt accurately reflects actual obligations. There are 3 separate debt authorizations from prior years that are no longer needed. Under state law and standard financial practice, any borrowing authorization that is no longer necessary must be brought back to town meeting to be formally rescinded. Rescinding unneeded authorizations helps maintain a clean debt profile and prevents unused capacity from remaining on the town's books. The first authorization to be rescinded comes from Article 42 of the 2009 annual town meeting, which funded the septic betterment program. The original borrowing authorization was $2 million, and the project is complete. Total expenditures were $1,999,999, leaving $1 on our statement of indebtedness unborrowed. The second rescission relates to Article 13 of the June 13th, 2021 annual town meeting, which authorized $350,000 for the purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus equipment for the fire department. The town received grant funding that reduced the amount required to be borrowed. Total town expenditures were $245,000, which included grant funds, leaving in addition to grant funds, leaving the $105,000 in unneeded borrowing authorization. The third authorization comes from Article 25 of the May 2022 annual town meeting, which authorized $500,000 for the Assabet River Bluff Land Preservation Project. The project is now complete with a total expenditure of $176,000, leaving $324,000 in unborrowed and unnecessary authorization. This table summarizes the three authorizations. Together, these total $429,001 in excess borrowing authorization recommended for rescission. These projects are complete, the funds are no longer needed, and rescinding the authorization helps keep our debt ledger and current and accurate.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? John?
So I think this represents less than 1% of our authorized but unborrowed funds. So why weren't other unborrowed funds included? And do we have some policy that says if a project hasn't been started after X years, it should be rescinded and go back to town?
That is definitely something that the Financial Policy Working Group might take under consideration. I don't believe there is a current timeline on any of these.
Thank you, John. Don, did you have anything?
My question was going to be related. So this only relates to completed projects, not those that were authorized and never begun.
Correct.
Okay. Well, it's a topic for conversation. Carla, you had one?
Will we see something from when the middle school building committee finally closes out its project, will we see this as a rescission like this piece?
Yes, there are two authorizations for the middle school, one of about a little over $100 million, and then another one of about $7.5 million. The first one is almost fully expended, and the second one has not been touched. It's a little premature to rescind it at this town meeting, but we will likely see it at the next.
Do you have a timeline for that?
I do not, but I've heard from our staff that's been working on with the building committee that they're hoping to close things out this spring and summer, and so we should have that final total by the fall. We will be doing the full borrowing on that first authorization this spring.
Peggy has her hand up.
Peggy?
So where does this money go? Free cash?
This money is not actual money.
Rescission, where does it land?
So this is an authorization to borrow that we are basically taking away. So there's no actual money being transferred anywhere. It is literally just scratching these off the books for tracking purposes. And
Okay.
it basically does not allow us to borrow those funds in the future if anyone wanted to open up a Assabet Trail, whatever, or the Assabet River Bluff project. It's been officially closed, so we need to
reappropriate.
The town has a
it.
maximum
That's
debt
fine.
capacity, and so by rescinding these, it allows for future debt within that capacity.
Any other questions? Any questions
I
online?
have one quick question. So there is like an official process for closing out a project?
There should be, whether there is in place or not. That's something that this particular issue is something that I walked into when I first started here, and within the first month, I had this list put together because we were working on setting up the new borrowing for this year, and I said, what is all this on our debt schedule unissued? Why are these not issued? And I said, so I contacted all the departments and I said, what's this project? What's the status? Why is this money unborrowed? And I got answers on all of the questions, and these three were clearly complete. So we will work toward timelines and closing out articles in a little more timely manner down the road as we are cleaning up the books a little bit more.
No questions online, no more questions in the room. That was the last article on our schedule. Carrie, did you want to say something? Nope. So Jennifer, I think you're done, or am I wrong?
Yes,
You're
I am done. I'm going to find us,
So,
I'm going to continue to monitor the slides for discussion.
Okay. So, there being no further conversation about any of these articles, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Carlin, second by Don. And any discussion on closing the public hearing?
I think we can go right to a
Fine,
vote.
roll call vote. All right. We're doing a roll call vote on whether to close the public hearing. Peggy Briggs,
Yes.
John Garofalo,
Yes.
Gerard Jansen,
Yes.
Don Kupka,
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez,
Yes.
Sri Tupel,
Yes.
and Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
It's unanimous, yes. Gerard, double check me on the count. Nine yes, 0 no, 0 abstention.
Agreed.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, now we are going to open our Finance Committee meeting. I don't think we need another roll call. We took a roll call at the beginning. What? You want to take a 5-minute break? I have a request for a 5-minute break. How do people feel about that? Okay, 5-minute break, but seriously, 5 minutes. All right, the Finance Committee is about to reconvene.
That's why we
That was a long 5 minutes. The Finance Committee is about to reconvene. All right. So, we have an agenda for this part of the meeting, but we're going to go directly to, I'm going to review the articles that we heard about tonight, and I'd like to get some sense of what people, as I read them off, if there's an article that you feel requires discussion, let's note it and pull it out, and we can decide based on how everything goes whether we want to even deal with it tonight or we want to deal with it after our hearing on Thursday. We can't have a pre-meeting on Thursday because we've already noticed the meeting for 7 p.m., so that's when we're starting on Thursday. Okay, so walking through the articles that we heard today, community preservation appropriation recommendations. Are we going to want to have a discussion about that? Or is that, nope, okay. Meeting procedure, I'm making the executive decision that we don't need a discussion on that. The fiscal year 2016 budget line item adjustments, wasn't that a no motion?
Article 6, no action.
That's a no action, thank you. Restoring balances close to free cash. Is that something we're going to need discussion about, or can we deal with it tonight? Retroactive salaries. So we can deal with this tonight. The grant fund balance deficit, that's Article 9. If anybody wants me to read the article out of the warrant, I can do that.
I do think on that one, the select board asked if we can use any unspent ARPA funds to offset that. I don't know if that means.
We're waiting for information.
Right, but I don't know if that would change our decision on that one or not. I don't think it would change decisions.
Okay. The municipal facilities planning, that's a $600,000, that we should have a discussion about
Yeah.
that, so that's a hold. The Articles 19, 20, and 21, establishing the capital stabilization fund, the appropriation to the capital stabilization fund, and the appropriation to the general stabilization fund. Are we prepared to vote on that tonight? I think so too. The OPEB trust fund appreciation and trust fund expense, we are prepared to vote on. The PFAS settlement unpaid bills is not being moved.
No action on 49.
And Article 50, debt rescission, we prepared to vote on that? Okay. So
So the one we're not going to do is Article 11.
Or Article
And,
12.
we're holding off on Article 12, and Article 11
Was from last week.
was from last week, and I think we'll hold off on that until Thursday, because that has to do a little bit with debt policy, and the financial policy working group is meeting tomorrow, and so we may develop a little more information about that tomorrow that we can report back on. So, okay, so you ready to take some roll call votes?
Well, let's do a motion first.
Okay, so may I have a motion to recommend affirmative action on the community preservation, on Article 26, the CPC appropriation recommendations?
Are you going to do it all, just the whole list of them?
No, I'm going to do it one at a
One at
time,
a time, okay.
but we can move through it, I think, efficiently.
Oh, I see. Are we going to be
So
voting
moved.
one by time?
What? I'm
So
sorry, I didn't hear you.
moved on your
What?
request for a motion.
Second.
Paul, I've got a procedure question. Are you going to do each motion second, and then we voted on all of them at one time, or motion, second, vote, motion, second, vote?
Motion, second vote, motion, second vote.
Okay, all right.
You know, people may differ, and that's only going to add, if we move through these quickly, it's only going to add a
Okay.
couple minutes to the,
All right. Article 26, Paul made the motion?
Lois?
Yes?
I really recommend we bundle these together, because if we can vote affirmative action, every one of them requires a roll call.
Is the sense of the group that we want to vote on all of these at once?
Not all, just
What?
the ones that you bunch together, the real easy ones.
Yeah, no, we can bundle them where they're logical, like the stabilization funds and the allocations, if you want to do that, Peggy. You know, we can spend a lot of time talking about how to do it, or we can just do it. So let's just do it.
Okay.
So can I have, I think I have a motion for affirmative action on Article 26, which is the CPC.
That's for Paul. Who did
Yes,
the
you
second?
do, Lois.
Do I have a
do
second?
that.
Second.
Who was that?
Don.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Okay, this is the motion for Article 26 for affirmative action. Peggy Briggs,
Yes.
John Garofalo,
Yes.
Gerard Jansen,
Yes.
Don Kupka,
Yes.
Lindsay Liss,
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez,
Yes.
Sri Tupel,
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
I have a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions. Gerard, does that match yours? Agreed. All right.
Okay.
Motion passes unanimously. Goodbye.
Congratulations, bye. There goes the CPC. Okay, this should move very quickly now. Can I have a motion for affirmative action on Article 3, meeting procedure?
So moved.
Who is that, Don?
Don.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Is Gerard seconded?
Gerard, okay, thank you.
Any discussion? Okay.
Okay, this is a motion for affirmative action on Article 3. Peggy Briggs,
Yes.
John Garofalo,
Yes.
Gerard Jansen,
Yes.
Don Kupka,
Yes.
Lindsay Liss,
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez,
Yes.
Sri Tupel,
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
Okay, count is 9-0-0, 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Gerard, do you match?
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
I need my recollection refreshed. Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Are we deferring or voting on restoring balances close to free cash?
What number is that?
7.
7, we're voting on it now.
Okay. Then may I have a motion to recommend affirmative action on Article 7?
Who is that?
Gerard.
Gerard.
Okay.
Second.
Don.
Gerard and Don, got it. Okay, any other motion, any discussion? No. All right, this is a motion for affirmative action on Article 7. Peggy Briggs.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sri Tupel.
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
All right, I have a count of 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Gerard, do you match?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, let's move to Article 8, retroactive salary dispatch union collective bargaining agreement. May I have a motion for affirmative action on Article 8?
So moved.
That was Peggy?
That was Peggy.
Second.
And
That
you
was
seconded
Don.
Don. Thank you. Okay.
Any discussion? Okay. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Roll call on Article 8 for affirmative action. Peggy Briggs.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sri Tupel.
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
Okay, the count is 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Motion passes. Gerard, do you match?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. May I have a motion for affirmative action on Article 9, grant fund balance deficit?
So moved.
That was Peggy. Who's the second?
Yes.
Who was it?
Gerard.
Thank you. Okay. Any discussion?
I see none.
Okay, roll call. This is for affirmative action on Article 9. Peggy Briggs.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sri Tupel.
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
Okay, I have a count of 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Gerard, your match?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we have agreed to defer discussion on Article 12 until our, after the hearing on Thursday. So that,
So are we deferring 12 to Thursday's meeting?
yes.
Okay.
11 and 12 will be deferred to Thursday's. meeting.
Thursday, March 12, right?
Right. Okay, so let's move to, and these are 3 I would consider doing together. May I have a motion for affirmative action on Articles 19, 20, and 21? Establishing the Capital Stabilization Fund, making an appropriation to the Capital Stabilization Fund, and making the recommended appropriation to the General Stabilization Fund.
Okay. This is the motion
Gerard.
for affirmative action by Gerard?
Yep.
Okay.
On Articles 19, 20, and 21.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
And that was Don?
Don.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, this is a motion for affirmative action for Articles 19, 20, and 21. Peggy Briggs.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Let me say your name first. Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sri Tupel.
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
Okay, count for those 3 articles, 1921. They're all 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Gerard, do you match?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, let's consider the next 2 articles together. Article 22, OPEB Trust Fund Appropriation, and Article 23, OPEB Trust Fund Expense.
Okay,
May I have a motion for affirmative action on Articles 22 and 23?
So moved.
So moved.
Don?
That was Don?
Yep.
For the motion. How about for the second?
I second.
Paul? Paul got the second. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no interest in discussion. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
We're getting the roll on it. Okay, this is motion for affirmative action on Articles 22 and 23.
Yes.
Peggy Briggs. Come on, Peggy. Wait till I call your name. All right. Yes, Peggy. All right. John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don
Yes.
All right. Lois Wassoff.
No, don't take me out of order. You're going to confuse me.
All right, let's
You gotta go out of order.
I know. Come on, pay attention. All right. Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Thank you. Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Shri Tupel. Shri, how do you vote on Articles 20?
22 and 23.
Lois? Lois Wassoff.
Yes. Yes, yes. All right.
Okay, all right. The count is 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention on Articles 22, 23. Gerard, do you match? Yes. My God.
All right. I'm going to combine the next two because we're losing it.
No, we've lost it.
I think we have lost it, but we have two more articles to vote on.
Or no, unpaid bills is not being moved. Okay, you're right. Okay.
Unpaid bills is not being moved. So we're going to combine, not because they relate to each other, but because we want to get out of here, the Article 24, which is the appropriation of the PFAS settlement funds, and Article 50, which is the debt rescission article. So may I have a motion to recommend affirmative action on Articles 24 and 50?
So, Gerard, can I say?
Second.
All right, Gerard moved,
And
Don seconded.
Got it. Okay,
Any discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
sure. This is a motion for affirmative action on Articles 24 and 25.
No, 24 and 50.
50. 24 and 50. Peggy Briggs.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Don't do that. Shri Tupel.
Yes.
I'm losing it. Okay, Lois Wassoff.
Yes?
All right, the count is 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Gerard, do you match?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The motion passes.
The only remaining item for action this evening, since we're going to defer Article 11 until Thursday, is to review and vote on approval of the minutes of March 5th. We could do that on Thursday.
I'm ready to go. That's fine.
You-
Please, I bet, yes.
So you want to defer it till Thursday?
No, let's do
You
it
want to
now.
vote on it now?
Let's do it now.
All right, we're going to defer to the clerk, who would actually like to vote on the minutes now. So,
How about the Article 49? Have you voted on that?
I'm sorry, Shri, what?
49?
Oh, there were not.
Oh, 49, there's no action.
yeah,
presented.
49 is not being moved to
It's
town
not
meeting,
being
Shri.
moved.
Okay.
What about Article 18? Did we decide not to vote on that one?
Yep, it was last week.
We voted on that last week, Peggy,
Okay, fine.
and it passed.
So, the minutes of the March 5th meeting, draft minutes of the March 5th meeting, were in the packet. They're toward the back of the packet. I think they started page, 105 of the packet. So, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 5th meeting and hearing as submitted?
I would so move.
Carlin moves. I'm chair, so I'm not allowed to second, so somebody please second it. Okay.
Thank you, Gerard.
Any discussion, corrections?
And Gerard, I did spell your name correctly this time, so.
I saw that, thank you.
You looked, okay, good. Any corrections? All right,
All right, then,
roll call of the minutes.
let's do a roll call of the
Okay.
minutes.
This is a motion to approve the minutes of March 5, 2026 as presented in the packet. Peggy Briggs.
I vote yes, and I would like to comment that getting minutes out this quickly during town meeting season is incredible.
I think
Thank
so,
you,
too.
Carolyn.
Thank you, Peggy, appreciate that. Without the help of AI also, I might add. Okay.
This is huge.
Thank you. That was Peggy. John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sri Tupel.
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Can I think about it? That was a joke. Yes, yes, yes,
Thank
yes.
you. All right. I
All
have
right.
a count of nine yes, 0 no, 0 abstention by my count. Does that match what you have, Gerard?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Then I am going to declare us adjourned, and we will see each other at 7 p.m. on Thursday. And we will be hearing a whole bunch more articles and returning to Articles 11 and 12.
And we're adjourned at 10:07
Thank you,
p.m.
everyone. This